Friends, in today's video, we will discuss Bandhan Small Cap Fund. Bandhan Small Cap Fund has been in existence for only 5 years. And in these 5 years, its performance has been consistently excellent. It has outperformed its category average in every time frame, whether it is 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or 5 years. Data beyond 5 years doesn't exist because the fund itself has only been in existence for 5 years. But in whatever time frame data is available, it has outperformed the category average in each time frame and also consistently remained in the top 3 positions across all time frames. Also, in very short term of less than a year, its performance is comparable to category averages. In fact, it is doing slightly better than the category. If we compare performance of Bandhan Small Cap Fund with the category in 1 year time frame, then while the category has delivered a return of 4%, this fund has generated a return of 12% for its investors. So it has outperformed its category with a large margin. The same situation is seen in the 3-year time frames. Where the category has given returns of 21%, this fund has generated a return of 29%. So here too, the fund has delivered significant outperformance. Even in the 5-year time frame, while the category has delivered a return of 35% only, the fund has generated a return of 38%. So a 38% return over a 5-year period is a very strong performance. But the most satisfying aspect of this fund's performance is that it didn't fall much even during downturns. In the next section of the video, we will try to understand what the investment strategy of the fund is, what its portfolio construction looks like, and by the end of the video, we will also try to understand whether this fund is good for long-term investment either through lump sum or SIP. If we talk about the investment strategy of the fund, then there is some very positive surprises for you. Because while the fund's investment strategy is a value investment strategy, if we look at its returns, it delivers returns equivalent to funds that follow a growth investment strategy. First, let us look at its portfolio turnover ratio, which is just 51%, while the category's portfolio turnover ratio is 81%. This means it invests with conviction and then holds that investment for better returns. So the working style of this fund resembles that of a value investment strategy fund, because the funds that follow an aggressive growth investment strategy frequently churn their portfolio, while this fund is not doing so. The second parameter that indicates whether a fund follows a growth investment strategy or a value investment strategy is the number of stocks it holds in its portfolio. This fund's portfolio contains 185 stocks, while the category average is just 85. The funds that follow a growth investment strategy generally have a very concentrated portfolio. For example, the Motilal Oswal Small Cap Fund, which follows a growth investment strategy, currently has only 51 stocks in its portfolio, while the category average is 85. On the other hand, Bandhan Small Cap Fund holds 185 stocks. This means that this fund follows a value investment strategy, and despite that, it has delivered such good returns. The only reason for such stellar performance is excellent stock selection by its fund managers, and therefore, despite such high diversification, it is still able to generate such good returns. Because, as you know, the higher the diversification, the more diluted the returns tend to be. But that is not happening with this fund. So, this clearly means that the stock selection process of this fund is very refined and the stock selection done by the fund is excellent. Another characteristic of this fund is that within small cap stocks, it has invested significantly in the smaller cap stocks. This means that within the small cap category itself, it has invested more in the smaller cap stocks, which provide a better growth opportunity. Because the smaller the market cap, the higher the potential for growth in a particular company. So while the category average is at rupees 11,300 crores in terms of average market cap invested in by other funds in a small cap category, this fund's average is rupees 8,700 crores. This means that even within the small cap universe, its investment is higher in smaller cap stocks, and perhaps that is why it is able to achieve such good growth. Further, AUM of this fund is at rupees 9,500 crores, which is a reasonable AUM for a small cap fund. On the other hand, there are funds like the Nippon India Small Cap Fund, whose AUM has crossed 58,000 crores, which may pose a liquidity risk for such type of funds. So there is no liquidity risk in this fund, which is a positive for it. Another characteristic for that helps identify whether a fund follows a value investment strategy or a growth investment strategy is the P ratio of the shares in its portfolio. The P ratio of this fund's portfolio is below 18. On the other hand, funds that follow a growth investment strategy usually have a much higher P ratio. For example, the Motilal Oswal Small Cap Fund has a P ratio of 33 for its portfolio, which follows a growth investment strategy. But such funds have a very high volatility risk because when funds that follow a growth investment strategy tend to fall sharply during market correction, as those high PE stocks fall more compared to the overall decline in the markets. However, as Bandhan Small Cap Fund has invested in shares with a P ratio of only 18, in which the probability of a sharp fall is negligible because their P ratio is already so low that even when the market falls, these stocks don't fall much and generally fall less than the category average. As you might have experienced from the performance of this fund, it has fallen less compared to the category averages during the recent market correction. Now let us discuss whether this fund is good for long-term investment, no matter whether you invest through SIP or lump sum. Please understand that if you are going to invest in a small cap fund, you should do so for long term only. That is at least for 5 years. And the longer you can go, 7 years, 10 years, or even more, that is better. From the discussion so far, you might have understood that this fund has performed quite well across all time frames. And it has achieved such good performance while following a value investment strategy, which is a very commendable aspect of this fund because funds that follow a value investment strategy do offer downside protection during market correction, but on the other hand their returns are not usually as outstanding as those of this fund. So this fund is providing both downside protection as well as good returns to its investors. Additionally, the likelihood of it continuing to perform well in the future as well is also high because it is a very diversified fund with excellent stock selection, which enables it to generate such good returns despite having such high diversification. So the volatility risk that is generally associated with small cap funds, which causes investors to exit quickly from small cap funds, will be psychologically manageable if you invest in this fund. Because in the event of a market correction, this fund provides downside protection, making it easier for investors to stay invested instead of exiting out of panic. In conclusion, if you want to go for long-term investment in a small cap fund, this fund appears to be a good choice. You can consider investing in this fund keeping in mind your time horizon and volatility tolerance. This video is only for educational purposes and is not an investment advice or recommendation. Always conduct your own research or consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.